Next up is Terrence. Terrence was a good athlete, but a bad sport. You know what that means to be a bad sport? Rondi and Allison were playing two-square with a red ball. Can I play? Asked Terrence. No, Allison replied. You have to let me play. Lewis says we have to share the balls. Well, I'm not sharing with you, said Allison. Oh, let him play, said Rondi. All right, we'll play three-square. You better play right. I will, said Terrence. Allison bounced the ball to Rondi. Rondi bounced it over to Terrence. Terrence caught it and kicked it over the fence. You have to go get it, said Allison. Shut up, Dixie Cup, Terrence answered. Rondi ran and told Lewis. DJ and Damien were playing basketball. Uh-oh, here comes Terrence, said Damien. Hey, let me play, said Terrence. Get lost, Terrence, said Damien. You have to share the balls. Lewis says so, said Terrence. Okay, but just throw it in the basket. Don't kick it, said Damien. I won't, said Terrence. First, Damien took a shot. It bounced off the backboard and through the hoop. Next, DJ took a shot. He threw it underhand, way up in the air. It came down through the hoop without touching the rim. Then Terrence took a shot. He kicked it over the fence. You idiot, said Damien. Take a train, peanut brain, Terrence answered. DJ went and told Lewis. Stephen, Calvin, Joe, John, and Leslie were playing Spud. Stephen was it. Everyone else had a number. Stephen had to throw the ball up into the air and call out a number. The person who had that number had to catch the ball. Can I play? Asked Terrence. No, you'll just kick the ball over the fence. The other boys said no. Sure, said Stephen. Newcomers are it. He gave the ball to Terrence. Just throw the ball up in the air and call out a number between 1 and 5. Okay, said Terrence. The children formed a circle around him. 1,000,000, yelled Terrence as he kicked the ball over the fence. What'd you do that for? Asked Stephen. Eat a frog, warthog, said Terrence. Stephen ran and told Lewis. Terrence looked around. There was nothing to do. There were no balls left. Lewis walked up to him. He was followed by Allison, Rondi, Damien, DJ, Stephen, Calvin, Joe, John, and Leslie. What's the matter, Terrence? Asked Lewis. There are no balls. Do you have a green ball? Nope, said Lewis. All my balls have mysteriously disappeared. Oh, darn, there's nothing left to kick. Nothing left to kick? Asked Lewis. Oh, I don't know about that. What do you think, Rondi? Is there anything left to kick? Rondi thought a moment, then she smiled. She was missing her 2 front teeth. Yes, there is something left to kick, she said. Well, where is it? Asked Terrence. Let me check with Allison, said Lewis. Allison, is there anything left to kick? He winked at her. There sure is, said Allison. What? What? Terrence said. How about you, Damien? Can you think of something? Damien nodded his head, yes. Well, what is it? Said Terrence. He couldn't wait. DJ, we've got anything around here to kick? Asked Lewis. DJ smiled. Yes, we do. Give it to me, Terrence demanded. I don't know if I should, said Lewis. What do you think, Calvin? Should I give it to him? I think you should, said Calvin. You heard Calvin, said Terrence. Give it to me. Not so fast, said Lewis. Leslie, should I give it to him? Oh, yes, I think he deserves it, said Leslie. Give it to me, Terrence repeated. Do you also think he deserves it, Joe? Asked Lewis. Yes, I think so, said Joe. What about you, John? Definitely give it to him. Come on, recess is almost over. We'll leave it up to Stephen, said Lewis. Whatever he says, goes. Let him have it, said Stephen. You heard him, Lewis, said Terrence. Let me have it. Okay, said Lewis. He picked up Terrence and kicked him over the fence. Not a good solution, but kind of deserved it. We're going to do another chapter, Joy. Joy had forgotten her lunch at home. It was lunchtime. She was hungry. She didn't have a meal ticket, and if she'd had a meal ticket, she could have had a lunch from Miss Mush, the lunch teacher. She'd have to be terribly hungry to eat a lunch made by Miss Mush. She had an empty brown paper sack. Even an empty brown paper sack would taste better. But that's how hungry Joy was. Damien hadn't forgotten his lunch. He'd brought a lovely turkey sandwich, a big piece of chocolate cake, and a crisp red apple. All he needed was a glass of milk. He could get that from Miss Mush. Miss Mush didn't know how to ruin milk. Damien left his lunch on his desk and went to the end of the milk line. Joy didn't waste any time. She reached into Damien's sack and took out the apple. Then she spotted the turkey sandwich. She put back the apple, took the sandwich, and noticed the chocolate cake. She put back the sandwich and took out the cake. But then Joy had second thoughts. She put back the cake, then grabbed Damien's whole lunch. First, she ate the sandwich. It was in a baggie. When she finished the sandwich, she placed the baggie on Jason's desk. Next, she ate the chocolate cake. It was wrapped in wax paper. She put the wax paper on Allison's desk. You see what's happening here? She ate the apple last. She placed the apple core on Dee Dee's desk. Then she put the empty sack on Calvin's desk. Damien returned with his glass of milk. "Mrs. Jewls, my lunch is gone," he called. "I wonder where it could be," said Mrs. Jewls. "Calvin took it," said Joy. "There's an empty sack on his desk." "Good work, Joy. Calvin, I'm ashamed of you." She wrote Calvin's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "Look, the baggie from Damien's turkey sandwich is on Jason's desk," Joy called. "Very good, Joy. But how did you know that Damien had a turkey sandwich?" "I'm just smart," said Joy. Mrs. Jewls wrote Jason's name on the blackboard under Calvin's. "And there's wax paper from the delicious chocolate cake on Allison's desk," Joy announced. Joy had chocolate all around her lips. Allison stood firm. She looked in Mrs. Jewls' eyes. "I did not eat that cake." "The evidence is there on your desk," said Mrs. Jewls. Joy spotted it. She wrote Allison's name under Jason's. "Damien's apple core is on Dee Dee's desk," said Joy. "Very good, Joy." She wrote Dee Dee's name under Allison's. "Damien, I think you ought to thank Joy. She solved the mystery." "Thank you, Joy," said Damien. Just then Louis, the art teacher, walked in. "I have your lunch, Joy. Your mother brought it in. You left it at home." "You mean you didn't have any lunch?" asked Mrs. Jewls. "You must be very hungry." "No, not really. Since Damien didn't get to eat, he can have it." "Thanks a lot," said Damien. "You are the greatest." He ate Joy's lunch, an old bologna sandwich and a dried-up carrot. "Joy, for being such a good detective and for being so generous with your lunch, you may help yourself to a Tootsie Roll Pop. They're in the coffee can on the top of my desk." Joy took one. Then, when Mrs. Jewls wasn't looking, she took another. Calvin, Jason, Allison, and Dee Dee had their names on the blackboard under the word discipline. But they were good the rest of the day, so at 2 o'clock Mrs. Jewls erased them. We forgot about the whole thing. Damien had a lousy lunch instead of a great lunch, but 5 minutes later it didn't really make any difference to him. He couldn't taste it anymore, and he was full. He went outside to play basketball and forgot about the whole thing. Joy had a great lunch and 2 Tootsie Roll Pops, but 5 minutes later it didn't make a difference. She couldn't taste it anymore, and she was full, and at dinner time she was hungry just the same. But a horrible thing happened. Joy couldn't forget about stealing Damien's lunch, and for the rest of the year, every turkey sandwich, piece of chocolate cake, apple, and Tootsie Roll Pop tasted like Miss Mush's porridge. So she had a little bit of guilt going on. Good. She should have that.